Hi, it's Todd from Todd's Workshop here, and welcome to Arrows vs Armour 2 Behind the Scenes. Now, this series of films was 3 years in the making, and none of it would have happened without the generosity of you lot out there, so thank you so much, backers of this project. It became really clear early on to us that there was a main film that we wanted to do, so we wanted to shoot at the Armour and everything about it, basically everything from the waist up. But actually, that's only part of the story, because if you're seeing something, what does that thing mean? What does it mean if the arrowheads of one type go in and not another? What happens if the armour is thin here but thicker there, and it's compromised here and not there? And what's the context of any of it? So we felt really that there needed to be deeper dive films. So what originally started as a one-day project, shooting this guy here, well, developed into a whole series of other films, funded by yourselves. And then that scope, the more we talked about it, the more we wanted to do. And so we've carried on making a couple of others and then squeezing ones into the cracks where we could. And that's what happened here. So behind the scenes is 3 days from the beginning of this series until, well, the end of the main film. It's an informal look. It's messing about. It's the way a film set works. It's a little bit of fun. It's a little bit of seriousness. It's a little bit of action. It's behind the scenes. We may have been thinking about this film for 3 years in intense detail, but some of the more mundane stuff just gets overlooked. Like, who am I? Am I Todd from Todd's Workshop? Am I Todd from Arrows vs Armour?
This is all Arrows vs Armour.
So I'm Todd from Arrows vs Armour.
Well, you've never... No, because the original one you said is hello, this is Todd from Todd's Workshop, didn't you?
Yeah.
So I think we should just stick with that. Stick with your same...
Todd from Todd's Workshop, and we're bringing you
Arrows
a whole series of films.
You are Todd from Todd's Workshop.
That is undeniable. Hi, it's Todd from Todd's Workshop and Toby Capwell. No, I'm not from Toby Capwell. By now, you're familiar with the 5 of us front of camera, but this was a really big operation. I mean, on the final day, I think we had 14 crew here, so it felt fine to get a couple of other interested parties along. So Matt Easton, who I know well from Scholar Gladiatoria, Alex Pocklington from Drakinifel, I know well, was also a major sponsor. They came down because they were super interested, and they chatted.
It's day one, technically speaking, of Arrows vs Armour 2. You may recognise me. Hello, I'm Drakinifel, and this is the man who has, believe it or not, continued to be Matt Easton.
I am still Matt Easton.
He has not changed into any other form yet. So, I guess over to you. What are you expecting to see from the main tests with the armour?
Do you know what? I tried to come into experiments with an open mind, because that's, I think, the nature of true science. They're throwing all of the parameters that are possible, I think, in this session of testing at it. Different types of arrows, different types of arrowheads made of different materials, being shot at different materials in different situations, different distances, things like that. So I'm personally very interested to see the parameters widened compared to Arrows vs Armour 1. A lot of people talk about impact energy. I've always been reluctant to accept that as a major thing, because yes, it's unpleasant being hit, but it's the fear. And we see this in Froissart's Chronicles, talking about the Poitiers, that the French knights feared that the arrows would penetrate the sides of their visors. It's that fear that, yeah, my breastplate's great, yeah, my bassinet is great at the front, but...
Matt and Drac have plenty to talk about. They both fight in armour, they both have the experience of exerting yourself hard when you're wearing full face protection, full armour, and the heat and everything else. Lots to talk about. And lots of good insights. So we left them chatting away. We went to set up. Joe and Augusto, they get sidetracked into how to draw bows. Because Joe has a unique technique, or at least unique to us who don't shoot the heavy bows, but it is really distinctively different. And Augusto was really interested in that.
If you shoot with a straight wrist, you can do it. But you put so much strain on your muscles around there, the ones that hold your wrist, that you end up blowing your elbow up. You have to have a bent wrist.
Okay. And it is bent forward-ish.
Probably holding a bow like that. But if you can hold a bow with a straight wrist, but it ends up putting so much strain on the elbow because you're not in line with it.
Yeah.
You're off this side of your elbow. It's just not wise, really.
The crew I've put together for this is a crew of specialists. We all know our own areas really well, but we also know a little bit about each other's areas. So conversations like this that Joe and Augusto have, it's just really interesting for both of them. And it's all really interesting for all of us as well, because all of these things, they just gather into our knowledge. The conversations we have just during the course of the day, it just expands our knowledge. And, you know, we're just exploding with more information and thoughts at the end of the day than we did have at the beginning. And some of that we're trying to translate into Arrows versus Armour too. So you get a bit of what we're talking about too and what we're thinking. It may appear from the outside that Arrows versus Armour is wholly driven by myself. It's not. It is a collaborative effort. It's clearly a collaborative effort between me and the other guys front of camera. But also, it's a collaborative effort between myself and Mike. This is his vision as much as it is mine. And we've worked on this for 3 years now, sort of developing it up. But Mike is also behind the scenes on all my YouTube films that I do, as well as this stuff here. So he's an editor, director, well, creative oversight and so on. Really important to this project. And that means he gets to boss me about.
Right, okay, everybody set? Oh, Todd, can you just rub in the sun cream on makeup?
Yeah.
So there are two things that we're doing here. One, we are confirming that that's the same as Joe's, but we also getting what Joe's speed is as well. Okay.
So fundamentally, going to do the introduction.
Yeah.
Todd, Joe. We've got a series of films coming up. Arrows versus Armour 2, multiple films. We've got 3 days of filming solid with you shooting a really heavy bow. This is the first of our deeper dive films, and it's really quite simple. We're comparing the longbow simulator, what I used to call the lockdown longbow, which is just a crossbow. I get it. We're comparing the speed and the way it shoots with Joe Gibbs. Do the two compare? Because there are little areas in this film, or these films, where we're going to need super accuracy or repeatability. And the longbow simulator might be required for that. So we need to make sure that that and Joe are basically shooting the same. And that's what this film is. Matt and Drac are still chatting away, but they're making some good points about what happens when people get injured, not just to the person who's injured, but to the person around them.
And one of the other things that actually I thought on the way up here was when we were at Tewkesbury, we saw in the big tent that had all the artwork.
Graham Turner.
Yeah, Graham Turner's artwork. Yeah. And that actually struck me. I mean, in a modern context, you have all the talk like 5.56 versus 7.62, and this whole theory
6.8 now.
Or 6.8, and it's like, and there's this. Obviously, there's one of the theories that's bandied around is that if you wound somebody, you take 3 people off the field because the wounded guy's down and 2 people have got to cart him away. And something I hadn't thought of in terms of arrows until I saw this painting was the painting of obviously a historical incident where a guy's gone down and he's got an arrow in his arm, just inside his elbow, so where he didn't have plate. So it's not relevant to the armour discussion per se, but I think there's male voiders or something. We know, it probably is going to.
They didn't always wear mail there, in fact, but anyway, it went in the elbow, didn't it?
But so he's gone down with a wound in his arm, and his brother is then standing over him, protecting him.
Yeah, absolutely,
And obviously, as we know, armies back then, you would have fathers, sons, brothers, cousins, nephews, etc., all on the same field.
Yeah.
And I thought it adds perhaps an extra dimension that we don't think about all the time. Of even if it bypasses the armor, even if it goes through the armor, even if it's just a wound.
Yeah.
It might not have killed the guy, but 1, he's out of action, and 2, it may take his friends and relatives out of action because they're standing around going, I'm going to protect him rather than...
And in the meantime, there's still confusion about who or what I am.
Todd, can you be my
Standing.
stand-in person?
So am I standing in for myself? Because that doesn't make me a stand-in, it makes me an actual.
All right, whatever. Just stand over there. On the spot.
So Joe, the most unlikely of things, I mean, both arrows ended up in the grass, right?
Yeah, that's a bit of luck, that one.
That is a bit of luck, so I'll take that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, let's go again, because they've got 9 lives, these arrows. Well, I was right. Matt and Drac had loads to talk about, and loads of experience and some good, valid points. And it's putting that experience together, that understanding of what it's like to fight in the armour, together with the experimentation that we do, the shooting of people like Joe, all of that, putting it all together, and it is just pushing our knowledge base so much further, so much faster in the last recent years.
And so, they were there to do their specific job, which was fighting in close combat. but people are shooting at them while they're trying to do that. So, you know, while you're having these arrows hammered on you and you've got the fear of being wounded or potentially by actually being wounded, you're also not doing your job of fighting in hand-to-hand combat. And, you know, Agincourt being the prime example of that, of we've got this idea, and I think a lot of us believe, that the archers were shooting at the French forces whilst they were trying to engage in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, and as we've both experienced also, I'm thinking with heat.
Yeah.
If you're not being shot at, you're probably going to have your visor up, getting a bit of a fresh air, cooling down a little bit. If you are being shot at, that visor's coming down immediately, and if you're forced to keep that visor down for 5-10 minutes standing in the blazing sun before the order to advance comes, then you're advancing with your visor down, possibly even getting into melee with your visor down.
And you know, and people raise their visors for all sorts of reasons, which I've discussed in many videos in the past. And how many people do we know were shot in the face with arrows in the Wars of the Roses and the 100 Years' War? You know, Henry V, when he was Prince of Wales, was shot in the face because at some point you either have to or choose to open your face up because of the advantages of doing that, and you know, as a trade-off, you might catch an arrow in the face.
And then, of course, tomorrow we're going to find out whether or not having standard quote-unquote armour would have saved you, and if so, how much.
So we don't know yet. So I suspect that some shots will penetrate some of the thinner plates on occasion.
Joe and I start our shooting trials, and the premise is really simple. But we want to know if it works the same when we come straight off the bow at no meters. Does it work the same at 15 meters, 25 meters, 50 meters? So we've got a radar chronograph and we're trying to get through that window. It's tricky. We know it's going to be tricky, but that's what we're trying to do.
So you are, just so you know, you're that much above.
You can see it doing almost exactly the same amount of wobble, but it's just got that width around the bow. Right. I shall save that.
We managed to get chronograph speeds off at the shorter distances, but out at the longer distances, for whatever reason, we're just not getting the arrows going through the little window on the chronograph. We just can't pick up the speeds, and it is so frustrating, and it shows.
What are you going to say?
That it doesn't make any sense. And I can only think that it might be the oscillation of the arrow itself is whipping through the chronograph differently. I wonder if you can Google oscillation of arrows and chronographs.
And we struggled on trying to make the chronograph work until Mike just suggested what we should have thought of all along, which is we had the tools to do the measurement anyway. Because you measure the distance out with the tape measure, so that's accurate, from the shooting line to the target. You then set up your slow motion camera way out, so it gets the whole field. And with 1,000 frames a second, you can really accurately measure how long it takes for the arrow to hit the target. Frame counting. You just count how many photographs the camera has taken. It's a simple sum, and you get the speed of the arrow, of the longbow simulator and of Joe. And that's how we got our table of information.
Yeah. I mean, the last bit is the drop off, I would say, between 15 and 25. Yeah. See if they drop at the same ratio. If they do, then lockdown longbow is in. If they don't, but then but then if they don't, by how much, and is that relevant for the test that we're going to do? Which I have no idea.
And that was it. The end of the first of our deeper dive films, but it's not one that we'd ever intended to do. So the whole crew hadn't been here during the day. But then by the evening, they start to arrive. Everybody wants to know what we're going to be shooting at over the next few days. So Mike gets all dressed up so we can see.
Right, just keep recording, Todd.
Yeah.
Well, that was fumbled. Yeah.
And so begins the second day of filming. And this is going to be busy because we've got 4 foundation films, 4 deeper dive films that we want to do today. So we've got professional camera crew coming in for this, professional sound. But one of our crew members, Piers, he's not here yet. We interview him, well, tomorrow on the main film day. But what he says is really insightful and I think really accurately put and well put and is true for today as it is for tomorrow's film. So I'm just going to slip Piers from the future in today.
What's really lovely is because it's been crowdfunded and because it's been done as a passion project for people who are, you know, passionate viewers as well, there's not the same sort of pressure on us as if we were, you know, working for a commission like for Netflix or whatever. I mean, I do stuff with David Attenborough, Simon Reeve, or, you know, Michael Mosley, these presenters who are, you know, for faces of their channel, and there's a lot of money involved, and we're traveling all around the world, 72 countries I've visited personally, and there's a huge amount of pressure in that because you've got to deliver for a fairly major client. The pressure here is to get it right, because all the people who are involved in this are actually committed to really understanding their craft and their subject with as much historical accuracy as possible. So there's a different set of pressures. We're not pressured to deliver a product that has to fit a certain format or for a certain client or a certain audience demographic. We're doing it because we want to get it right, and that's, you know, a pleasure.
The first of our deeper dive films today is what is the most suitable material for the arrowheads. So we are going to be shooting them just to gauge penetration against flat sheets of steel, not proper armour. But the thing is, it allows us to understand a lot better. But as ever with filming, all the setup, all the preparation seems to take ages. So this is the sort of thing that we have to do during the course of the day when things don't quite work out. You just got to work your way around your problems. I've been involved with film and TV for over 30 years. But when you have so many people all working together, there is always something that's been overlooked, something that's been forgotten about, a battery that's flat. There is always some reason that you haven't started to roll the cameras. This project's no different, but it gets there.
Right. It is. All right, I'll shut up.
Hello.
Very tense. Filming is always full on. There's so many people working together, running about, doing their own bits, talking, interacting with other people. It's a busy place, and this film set is no different. But it does, and it will, all come together in the end, because it always does. We've always said that we don't work to scripts, and we don't work to scripts. But of course, you see people in this film with bits of paper, what look like scripts. They're not. They're the stories. They're the expected outcomes. They're conversations that will bring up the key points that we want to show and we want to explain and we want to discuss ourselves. But what we do is we take what actually happens and we feed that into these stories. And we show you what happens. It's not predetermined. And believe me, if that story, if that list of key points is not reflecting what we're seeing out there, it will get thrown out and updated faster than Joe's arrows travel. We don't work to scripts. We react to what we see. It's very important for us that every stage is validated and that decent information is generated, but also that it's transparent. So you can understand the choices that we've made, why we've made them, even if they're different to yours, and how that fits into the wider world. And then you can take that information and use it however you want in your understanding. You're guessing, because your guessing is like our guessing. But the better informed it is, the more likely we are to be close to it. And it's that validation that we're trying to do with all of these films, step by step by step, showing, explaining, thinking it through. It may not be the information that you want. It may not be information that fits with what I or you understand. But it's the information that we're generating. And that will just be another piece in the jigsaw of all of this information. We had so much to film over this day that everything had been well thought through in advance and prepared. So everything also had to be interchangeable. It had to be quick. That's the only way it was going to get done. So that's what you're seeing here. Just elements coming in and going out so that we can just run the next test again.
Right.
So we'll have a...
Oh no, it's not a wrap. Shit. We're off.
See you later. You said it.
I did. Oh no.
You said it's a wrap. It's a wrap for the first film out of 3.
Right.
Round about now, it's important to remember that this is not just a job to us. This is our passion. This is our interest. This is just, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And so we don't know what's going to happen either. And we are learning and getting excited by what we are seeing. But there's no rest. So we're straight into the next film now, which is comparing different armour materials, one against the other, just to see how they perform. In this film, where we look at different armour materials, the sample size was small. And that meant that I needed highly accurate shooting, more accurate realistically than a longbow is going to achieve over that distance. So I moved to the longbow simulator. It looks like a cheat, and it kind of is a cheat, but it's close enough to Joe's shooting that we know that the results are going to be pretty comparable. And that allows us to look at one material against another material. Didn't they?
The head is sticking out.
Oh, you two are so good at spoiling it.
Sorry.
So you just figured it all out. Done.
Camera. Yeah, Paul, here.
Right through the
fire
arrow.
now. Yeah.
Right through the arrow and carbon. You guys know what you want to conclude?
I think we keep the conclusion fairly straight, which is exactly what Toby said, which is it is mild steel, it's a good analogue, it's not it's not fantastic. It's what Alan Williams said was a low-grade carbon steel. We were on fire at this point and we went straight into shooting the male samples. And again, it's a simple comparative test. Commercially available male against the best handcrafted reproduction male that we could get. They look different. They certainly feel different. I wasn't expecting that. But do they perform differently? I didn't know. We didn't know. Do you know? But now we do. So we compare the two. How does that perform against that? Simple film.
But I'm really curious how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And also I want to see how the rivets fail.
Yeah, place your bets now, please.
Yep.
It's actually so cool. We haven't had a rivet fail. It's all been the link itself.
Oh yeah, you collected the...
Yeah, I've got mine with the broken brilliant bit. And action.
Fantastic shooting by Joe there, can't argue that. By this point in the day, we've shot our 3 foundation films. But there was another question that's been going for a long time with us as a group, which is, how powerful is a warbow? Now, the thing is, it's all guesswork because we simply don't have the evidence to answer that question. So we just have to build it on what we know and what we understand. Now that we've chosen to use Joe shooting a 160-pound bow because it's at the top end of what a bow could be, really, that a normal person can shoot. We can't answer the question, can armour be defeated by an arrow if we're using a weaker bow? So that's why we have gone for a heavier bow. But actually, would a 120-pound or a 130-pound bow be powerful enough to be considered a war bow? Well, we didn't know the answer to that, so we set out to find out.
And action.
So 135, please, Joe. So thank you very much, guys. Loads more Arrows vs Armour films. Go check them out, and we'll see you again. It really is a wrap!
That's a wrap today.
And so ends day 2. And it was full on. So it's time for us to relax. So it's time for a tourney. 15th century meets 21st. You got to improve your technique. Oh! And now we're into day 3, the main film itself. Well, there's a lot to do, so everybody helps out wherever they can.
Our job today currently has been trying to mount an umbrella just in case it rains over the Kronos.
Yeah, that's it.
And
how do you mount an umbrella?
yeah.
So it's Rob and you're on camera today.
Hi, yeah, come along to make some lovely pictures today.
Yeah, brilliant. And last time here, it was three years ago, wasn't it?
So it doesn't feel like 2 minutes, but here we are again.
Yeah,
Great, really
so
exciting.
You've already done a couple of days, hasn't it been?
Yeah, it's been full, a lot of, no stopping, just go at it, but it's really interesting stuff to do. You know, you can really get involved in the content of what we're seeing.
Yeah, and you've got your...
I've got my boy here because he absolutely loves all things historical.
There's an awful lot to do to get this shoot ready. So all of the technical people, the cameras, the sound and so on are busy, well, doing their own things because they can't mess up. But nor can we. So we're dressing up our guy, getting him all ready. And sometimes the pressures of filming can just get a bit too much.
Oh, you're close now. Hit it. Lean with shoulder grab.
Oh yes, wait.
Yeah. Okay, so I think
So these are the arm armatures which have been weighed down with lead to be reasonably equivalent to a human body. And they just go in. Quick question, does he have anything on his stomach, historically?
A lot of them,
absolutely.
some of them do, but a lot of them still don't.
Right.
It's an area of variability.
I mean,
But they've already rapidly realized they need stuff there.
Yeah.
And the plate armor is moving that way, it just hasn't become universal.
You're Holly and you're assistant Pierce?
Yeah, so I'm Holly, I'm assistant Piers and I'll be on the C300 today, so yeah, I'm very excited. It's going to be a good shoot.
Brilliant. And can you lift up the C300
Yeah,
and
sure.
show it? So,
There you go.
yeah, just one of many cameras today, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I can get you on this side. Porca Madonna, porca Madonna. Right, let's move the
Do you want to put them on the grass?
Yeah, move the board.
Hi, well, it's Drac at Todd's workshop here. So we are partway through the filming of Arrows vs Armour 2. As you can see, I have a nifty crew t-shirt. Now, this is quite the interesting weekend. We're just setting up at the moment for the main shoot. So that's the one that you will have seen first, shooting against the actual armour. We've done all the predecessor films establishing why we're doing it, etc. Now, all of that has been really, really helpful and really interesting. But one of the key things with all of this has been establishing the baselines and establishing what we know, what we don't know. Guessing ahead of time what might happen was really interesting. And for those of you who view my channel, you know my background as an engineer as well as a naval historian. And combining those two things, the fact that, say, case-hardened arrowheads do better than wrought iron arrowheads, that wasn't exactly a surprise, but it was nice to see the engineering in practice. Looking at the materials themselves, the way that they failed, the way that mild steel fails versus the way that wrought iron fails, versus charcoal rolled iron. As an engineer, that's absolutely fascinating to me. You look at the failure patterns are superficially similar, but when you look up close, you realize they are in actual fact completely different modes of failure, completely different types of damage. And that is just fascinating from an engineering perspective, but also from a perspective of how much damage underlying would be inherent to the various types of armour. At the moment, as you can probably see in the background, people running back and forth, setting up camera equipment, setting up targets. You've got to get someone to make the armour, you've got to get someone to make the arrows and the arrowheads, someone to make the bows, and of course someone to shoot the bow, which is not easy. I shoot about 120 pounds. That's the upper limit of what I can do. Watching Joe Gibbs shoot 160 accurately all day is frankly worrying. It's just like, I don't want to be at the wrong end of that arrow. But I mean, the whole, if you like, cast and crew, absolutely fantastic. You've obviously got Todd, who's a huge degree of professionalism. As an amateur medieval historian and as an engineer, I've been so impressed with what's going on, and I really hope you guys enjoy what you're about to see.
Yeah, can you do that? All right.
This is the sequence. They're moving in, getting shot, so they bow their heads. They're still getting shot, so and they're progressing past the wings of the archers, so they're starting to get it in the side.
Yeah, I like, and we have to shoot from the side, which is where basically our last thing. So yeah, can we do that then? So we've got that coming over.
By this point, we're halfway through the shooting this day. But of course, this is the third day of shooting for Joe, so I was concerned about how tired he was, his ability to accurately shoot. And we needed it accurate, so I suggested that we used the longbow simulator. Joe suggested otherwise.
We want to see you with a crossbow.
Yeah.
And
then we just blat every arrow we've got.
well,
Let's kill them all.
I think that's the main priority is trying to hit the helmet on the side.
Yeah, like this and this I think will be the most interesting.
Yeah, is that optimum for hitting that there?
Yeah, it is square on. Even though I think it's too thick to go through.
Oh, okay.
We're getting to the end of our filming now. And of course, we have different trades, we see different things, we look at it from different angles. We have different things we want to see. So we talk about it. We decide how we're going to finish this film off, and then we go. So we do, in fairly rapid succession, Joe does 6 case hardened. We do however many, a wadge at the visor. And then at that point, we probably have a conclusion. Joe, I mean, come on guys, there's got to be a round of applause for Joe in the shooting. And that means everyone. That was awesome, that one. So let's go and have a look, see what we got.
That would have just been a glance. It's still glance, but look at that bite. But the other thing.
That's the first thing I want to talk about. Look at that hole there.
Yeah. We'll also reviewed a little bit of footage on one or two of these, and they go in, and then we tend to bounce out again.
And so it ends. 3 very hard, very full days. But we have enjoyed it so much. And it's possible because of you, Arrows vs Armour 2 backers. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, from all of us in the Arrows vs Armour 2 crew. And actually, you know what? We've all learned. I hope you've learned. And the whole subject matter is just a little bit further than it was earlier this year. Thank you.